Okay, hello everyone. I think we can start. I'm very happy to welcome you at today's lecture devoted to net art and called Net Art Emancipated User. And today we have a guest lecturer. I would introduce her. This is Christina Otz. She's a curator of AIR, Art ITMA residency, and post-internet art researcher. So Christina will give today a lecture on net art. And if you have any questions, please address them in the chat or ask Christina after the class. Christina, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Lina. I also want to welcome everyone here. It's nice to see some of the familiar names in the chat. So hi to everyone who I know and to who not else know me. It will be nice to talk to you today. So as Lina told, we will be discussing such phenomenon as net art. And I deliberately avoid using the term genre because I think that net art cannot be referred as a separate genre. This is not homogeneous phenomenon, and a lot of different movements and artistic experiments were all connected in one art movement. And this is important to note from the start that we will be considering net art not only as a movement, but also as a community of artists. And this is partly because I think why our lecture will be pretty intense, because most of the artists are not only artists, they were also theoretics. And their artworks were the development of media theory and internet theory. And those ideas that they were implementing, they were basically how they were trying to understand what the early web was. And I will share my screen now to show you the presentation, and we will start. So, as I already told, net art can be considered as a community, and our lecture will be structured this way. So first of all, we'll talk about history and history behind the internet and behind the net artist community. Then we will talk a little bit about theory, which cannot be avoided definitely when we're talking about such an artistic movement. And then we'll use some of the examples of net art projects to talk more broadly about the ideas that they were thinking about and the theory behind it. So first of all, I think we need to try and define what the net art is. There isn't any strict definition of what it is because it always escapes us trying to put it in the borders. However, I will address the definition that Andreas Brogger, art historian and curator, came up with. And he told that net art can and should only be experienced online. And I think this is maybe one of the most important definitions that we can tell. So here on the slide, we are looking at simple net art diagram. And this diagram was made by MTAA Collective in 1997. And what it suggests us is basically that net art is not happening on the screens, but it's happening between the computers. So it's happening between the, on the net itself. And this is what was important for artists. It was important to understand what are the capacity of the web and what are capacity of the language of the web, and how can we do art in the web. So there wasn't any artistic canon when they started it, because net just appeared. And for them, it was important to understand how we can be in the web and what can be done there. However, I will also talk about some types of net art that Rachel Green is telling us there are. And she usually tells that there are those types: emails, websites, graphics, audio, video, and animation. I would also add here activism, and we will talk broadly today about net art activism, and better call it hacktivism. And also I would add language experiments. So when we're talking about language experiments, right here, we're seeing these net art with ASCII symbols around it sentence. And there is this myth which was made by artist Alexei Shugin, that the term net art itself is a ready-made, and that they found it in one of the emails that was sent to them by the anonymous writer. So the email was broken. This is why we're looking at ASCII symbols. But among those ASCII symbols, there were net art. And their myth is that this is how they got their name. However, of course, they are lying a little bit. And the term itself was created by Pete Schultz. He is a theorist and curator. And in 1995, he made an exhibition which was called Net Art. And this is where they got their name from. When we're talking about net art, one thing we need to make clear from the start is that not all art that we can find in the internet is net art. And first of all, this is obvious. We cannot refer to net art. We cannot think of multiple JPEGs that museums and galleries are putting on the websites as net art. But also, we cannot think of all digital art which we can find in the net as net art. So I think it will be more clear after we look at some examples, because I know that right now it's much indistinct. But to try and understand if we're looking at net art, we need to think of some of their qualities. It will be the political protest, it will be the formal experiments with the internet language, with web language, and it will be misuse of the code and misuse of the strategies that are implemented in the web. So as all avant-garde artists, for them, it's pretty important to deconstruct what was given by the World Web Consortium, which created World Wide Web. And they're trying to break the mechanisms, and through breaking those mechanisms, they're trying to understand how it works and what can be done with this new digital, or better to say, web language. So I already told you that net community is pretty important when we're talking about net art. And I would like to tell you about one mailing list that is pretty important when we're talking about this movement. So obviously, we maybe don't really remember it right now, but when net and the World Wide Web occurred, it suddenly had this capacity to make it possible to communicate with the people all around the world. And back then, they didn't have, obviously, Skypes and social medias, so they were mainly communicating through mailings, through emails. And they were creating such platforms as mailing lists, and NetTime mailing list is one of the most important mailing lists. On this mailing list, you can find almost all artists and supporters of this movement. All of the theory, which was only forming back then, was put to this mailing list. So, for example, Gerd Loving was writing his piece, his critical piece on the internet, and he would send it to Pete Schultz, who was the moderator of the NetTime, and Pete Schultz would post it, and then everyone would discuss it. This right now works as an archive, and I just want to show you how it looks, because I think it's pretty important to get hold of how internet looked like back then. If you go here, you can find some listings of the articles and announcements that were posted. you can read those. And also, what is important, it works as a web ring, and we will address it in one moment, what is web ring. But basically, you can click to the next date and see the next email. And sometimes there is not only one, but many of the emails on one date. So again, if you are interested in NetArt, I strongly suggest that you surf through this, and you can find there a lot of articles and a lot of discussions of what is the nature of web and how users should behave on the web. Yes, the web rings. So I already told you that the internet was quite different back then, and there wasn't such a phenomenon as a search engine. So back then, this phrase occurred, surfing the net. I think we don't use it anymore, but maybe when we're little or younger, we were using this term also. But actually, this is a pretty important term when we're talking about early web, because you really was surfing. So you didn't get the chance to just go in search engine and type some information that you wanted to have. It was more about exploring what is out there. So people didn't have any entertainment platforms, and they had quite interesting instruments in their hands. So finally, they were able to create some home pages where they were talking about who they are, what are their family, what are their interests. And because it wasn't impossible to find something, this phenomenon occurred as a web ring. So basically, the web ring is links, co-linked websites. Every web ring had its ringmaster, and ringmaster was like the moderator of web rings. And once you created your homepage, for example, or I don't know, like fan page of anime, of gaming, of anything, you could send them their site, and they would decide if it should go in the web ring or not. And this is again how the internet looked like. I will be telling about it a lot because I think it's important to understand that it was absolutely different visual culture back then. And this is a resource that I'm using right now. It's called The Old Net, and it's an artistic initiative to archive the old net. So we would be able to see how it looked. So we would be able to understand what people were interested in back then. And here we see the web ring, which was about home pages. And unfortunately, I tried it already. Almost all other links are broken. And so they weren't archived and they're gone forever. And this idea of gone links, it is pretty important for NetArt, because definitely NetArt was in the net, and lots of artistic experiences and lots of artistic experiments unfortunately are lost right now in the web and cannot be connected. So of course, when we're talking about every artistic movement, we need to understand the context of the artistic movement. And with the NetArt, it's pretty obvious that the internet itself was something that gave the material for artists to do their artworks. So the small history of early web should be told. In 1990, Tim Berners-Lee suggests the idea of World Wide Web. And back then he worked at CERN company. And in 1990, he had written the 3 fundamental technologies that are still used in the web. Those are HTML, hypertext markup language, this language still one of the bases of the web. Then URI, Uniform Resource Identifier. This is a kind of address that is unique, and it is used for identifying resources on the web. And HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, which allows the retrieval of linked resources from across the web. And all those technologies, they will be used by the artists. So 1990, when Tim Berners-Lee basically made the World Wide Web, it wasn't yet public. It was only used by the workers of certain company where he was working. And only in 1991, the first page occurred. It was the page that was made by Tim Berners-Lee, and it was telling about this new technology, World Wide Web. And public were invited to become a part of web community. However, we need to understand that there wasn't much technologies yet, and nobody had actually the access to the internet. So for the first years of World Wide Web, it was mostly used by academics, by scientists, and so it was quite closed community for sharing documents and combining libraries, which will be able to connect this academic community. However, the net was pretty fast exploring, and here you can see the line of technologies that came up in the first years of the internet. So this first image, it came up in 1992, and it was also made with the Photoshop, and it was quite interesting for the users back then. And then we see Mosaic 1, Netscape, JavaScript, CSS, and Flash. All of those technologies were giving something new. So Mosaic basically is the first browser. Netscape is a browser that allowed to structurize in tables, as you see here in the picture. So we have basic web design. And of course, JavaScript, it brought interactivity in the web. It brought animated GIFs. And CSS allowed to easily download images. So why is this so important? Of course, because when we'll be looking at the examples, we need to understand that, like, the first artwork in 1994, it's purely text-based because the internet was purely text-based. And then we see more and more examples. They become more visually interesting and more extensive. So the development of the net, it of course intertwined with the yes, everything okay? The development of that, it's intertwined with the technology itself, but also it's pretty closely connected to the theory. And when it appeared, the World Wide Web, it was seen as a realization of emancipatory utopia. And this theory of emancipation in the media, emancipation through the media, was closely developed by different academics and theoretics in the 20th century. And here you can see some of those. For example, Bertolt Brecht, he was one of the first who implemented this idea of radio as an apparatus of communication. And basically it was the idea that every radio should not be only receiver, but should also be a transmitter. So we should use radio and any electronic device, not only to receive information, but also to transmit information and to become active. And this idea of breaking one-way communication, it was the foundational core of the theoretical development of leftist media critique. And the common ground of its critical potential was to overcome this communication and make user proactive. I think one of the most important works that were made in this field is the work by Hans Magnus Enzensberger in 1970. So in his theory of the media, he shifted attention from the media itself to its use. And he drew a line between repressive use of the media and emancipatory one, where repressive has centralized control system, one-sided communication, and provokes passive consumption. And emancipatory, it characterizes by decentralized, linking many to many, fostering interactivity, collectively producing and actively using. And this emancipatory potential, it was promoting collective mobilization. So it was making each user of technology a political subject. And what we see here is that basically the internet is this technology which was envisioned by Enzensberger. And this is technology which is decentralized, which is linking many to many. And this is why a lot of artists came to the web, because it was not only giving them capacity to talk about something in mailing lists, but it was also giving them capacity to transmit their ideas into the world and to talk to wider public of users. And this is pretty interesting that in the 1996, almost 8% of the old users of the web were considered artists. So they were identifying themselves as net artists. So it was a huge community, and definitely won't be able to talk about all those 8% here today. And we'll only look at the most bright examples. But still, a lot of people were trying to understand this technology. And so this idea of emancipated user, it was one of the core ideas of some net art experiments. And they were trying to do, for example, free software, which they will be distributing and giving users an ability to avoid buying something, right? So it's the idea of openness, of free exchange. And also they were implementing these platforms that can indulge creativity in the users. And they were declining the idea of authorship and of individuality, because the net itself is something that in its nature can be copied, can be manipulated. And basically you can go and copy any website that you want and you can recreate it, and it was possible back then. And lots of artworks were implementing these platforms. One of the artwork, it is a late artwork. I'm showing it because it's still working. There was many different experiments with how you can make a platform for users to start and create something. So this is the work by Leah. It is called 10. Oh, it's also not working. Somehow it worked. Okay, sorry, it's also not working. I will show you the pictures. So this is the work which made possible for user to create their own masterpiece and to save it to their computer by their own authorship. Here, what was supposed to be on the screen is a blank screen. And with your mouse, you can create these beautiful glitches and also audio noises. And then you can save it to your own computer and do with it whatever you want. You can sell it, you can, I don't know, put it to your wall. And this is how artists were trying to come up with some instruments for users to make art. And they were trying to break this idea of art as something that is in a close community, something which belongs to intellectuals. Another pretty important example of collaborativity, which we can find in the internet, is a work by Douglas Davis, the world's first collaborative sentence in 1994. And this work is actually considered by some theorists and art historians to be the first work of net art. So what this work suggested is that every user can go to the website of the artist and continue the sentence, whatever they like. So they could put there some of the photos, they could put their sound, audio files, links, and we see here the documentation of this work. It is still actually active, so if you go through all sentences, it's a long list, you can then prolong it, and the only thing that you need to remember is that you should not put a comma in the end of the sentence. So with this work again, we can talk about very interesting characteristic and trait of net art. I already told that a lot of artworks are not active right now. So without it's being categorized and cared for, lots of works are just vanishing. This work was restored. It was restored in 2013 by Whitney Museum, and we see here in the link that it's artportwhitney.org. So Artport is this initiative which was implemented by Christiana Paul. She's a curator and art historian. She's researching internet art, and she was one of the main figures in net art community. So what she's doing from 2001, she started to collecting for Whitney Museum net artworks, and this is why lots of the artworks are alive right now. Unfortunately, again, here we see that, for example, if we go through this link, it won't be working. And some of the ideas that were implemented by the users, they're lost. But if we go to this site, I hope that it will download. Yes. So we're clicking to Cool Place and we're going to the White House, and instantly we see how the humor behind this work, right? We see how it's mocking the authority and institutions, and without this constant and without context and without those art links working, we only will be able to experience part of those artworks. And this is what it is when we're talking about net art. Another example with those experiments of collaborative creating is the example made in Russia by Roman Leibov. Usually it's not listed as a work of net art, but more of hypertext literature. But I think if we perceive net as a community, then we can also talk about such projects, and it's pretty important in Russian context. So in 1995, Roman makes this novel. He suggests that there is some basic narrative, which is about a young man who was in love with a girl. And then every user could come and prolong this story and create how this narrative will end. And here we see multiple choices of where the story went. And also, yeah, you see here that it's all English letters. This is why in 1995, Russian internet was mostly in English. So there wasn't a lot of Cyrillic letters back then. So all those examples, they're telling us that finally this emancipated utopia came to life, that viewer and user became a producer, and this idea of a net as an open community and the web as a material which is open to manipulation is motivating artists, as I already told in the beginning, to try and break the internet. So this important movement is arousing hacktivism. So basically it's hackers who consider themselves as artists, and they were trying to stimulate decentralized production, and they were trying to go for this idea of open exchange of information. And here, among hacktivism experiments which we'll be looking at, I also want to tell about two examples. One is the Pirate Bay. I think all of you know about it. So the Pirate Bay was also considered a part of net community because, of course, in the core of Pirate Bay is the free distribution of information. And actually, Pirate Bay was a part of Venice Biennial once. They were making some political actions there. So yeah, they consider themselves as an artist. And another pretty important example is about Ars Electronica. So in 1999, in Ars Electronica Prix, so it's an award that is that was established by Ars Electronica Festival. In the net category, they awarded not artist, but they awarded Linux. And Linux was free software and still is free software. So for net community, it was pretty important to break the border between life and art, between strategies of proactive users. And I think this is what, yet again, can be linking them to avant-garde experiments, this idea of breaking the line between art and life. So right now we're here, we're looking at the very important experiment that was made by eToy Corporation in 1996. This is basically a search engine, and at its core, there is a manipulation with a predetermined set of most popular search queries. If we go to the website, yes, 1 second. We see how the work looked back then. So it's also documentation, of course. But if you type in some words, you are going to this list of links, which are all redirecting you to this artistic website. And by going here, you think that you're going, for example, to the Porsche site, but you are faced with this sign, this is a digital hijack, don't fucking move. And right now we're seeing the number of hostages that were taken since 1996. If we look through the site, we can also understand some of the philosophy behind it, sorry. And this is not MTV, this is obvious. They are trying to critique capitalistic and pop culture. If we continue searching here, we have this free distribution of information, music, and also the story behind the work itself. And here are the list of the words which you could type in into the search engine, and you would be redirected. And I think it's really interesting because if we look through those, we would know what are the most frequent search queries were in 1996. I will just close everything. Yes. So this idea of putting user into the website is of course critical, and it puts a question to the very utopian notion of freedom in the web. So this artwork, it shows how easily information can be manipulated in the web and how easily we might be attracted to some other site. And this idea of using the media to disrupt the flow of information, to disrupt the user, and its interaction with the web, it's closely linked to theoretical idea which was suggested by Garrett Loving and David Garcia. This is the idea of tactical use of the media. So in 1997, they wrote this manifesto, which was called the ABC of Tactical Media. It was actually posted in the NetTime mailing list. And in tactical media, they were trying to combine art, experimental medias, and political activism. And they themselves described tactical media as media of crisis, criticism, and opposition. And the key principle of using media tactically was not to describe things or just send some information, but to do things through the media. And basically became this background for hacks and media pranks that were pretty common among net artists. And actually, if you are in the theme of internet art and you're interested in it, I strongly suggest that you look more at the text of Geert Loving. Right now, he's the head and co-founder of Network Culture Institute in Netherlands. And one of his books, Critical Internet Theory, I think it's called, it's available in Russia. It was published by Marketing Press. But yeah, let's go to the examples. So lots of artists inspired by the idea of using media tactically, they started to critique what was becoming of the net. So this is very important, that pretty fast this window of freedom was becoming too close. And big corporations, they understood how how PR strategies or distributive strategies can be implemented and used in the net. And they will started to come in the net. And artists, of course, didn't like that. And based on the idea of another theoretics, Richard Barbrook and A.D. Cameron, which was implemented in the text Californian ideology, they were criticizing this neoliberalism of dot-coms. So what is this neoliberalism of dot-coms? This is basically the idea that big corporations and Silicon Valley, they are moving us to the attention economy, where every click that we make and every like that we put is producing value for those companies. So artists, they are trying to disrupt this logic. And
Hola, Franco.
Oh, sorry, I can hear someone. Thanks. So one of the most interesting examples is an artwork by Hit Bunting. It was called Pseudo Wars, and it was made in 1998. This artwork is not active right now, but I will explain how it worked. It was a search engine, alternative search engine, and when you were putting some of the big corporations' names, like Nike, Adidas, Marks and Spencer, and some others, instead of seeing the websites of those companies, you were seeing the websites of net artists, of Hit Bunting, of Olle Lalina, and other net artists. So this is the idea that the position of your site in the search engine has value. And artist is reversing this idea, and users, instead of going to the site to buy something, they are going to some site like we saw, for example, like a digital hijack, and they don't understand what it is and why they're not on the Nike website. And of course, it was met with a lot of irritation from the big companies and from the public. And another pretty important example can be called media prank, I think. And it was made by RT Mark Corporation. So what they were doing, they were critiquing all institutions, and they were using the websites of big institutions, for example, the website of George Bush, and we'll look at it in 1 second, or website of World Trade Organization, and they were creating these spoof sites or fake sites, and they were trying to imitate the structure of the initial site. So when user was coming to this website, instead of like true information about George Bush, he, for example, might see the press release of the Amnesty 2000 program, where George Bush was telling that he would pardon all drug dealers because he understands that while they were dealing cocaine or heroin, they were not grown up, and now he believes that they are changed because they have grown up. So yet again, the website, it exists only as documentation, and it doesn't really work, and it doesn't really have all the information that it had, but it looked like this. And here you could go to different links, and instead of information that you could get from this website, you were getting some critical information that was trying to mimic the language of this White House. All those experiments, oh, and of course, Artmark, they were one of the first net artists who were faced with legal actions. So those sites were shut down pretty fast because there were lawsuits, governmental lawsuits, and it was pretty serious back then. They even were doing another project, which was called Vote Action, but because they were under this law campaign, under lawsuit, they had to give their project Vote Action to different artists, and then they implemented those Vote Action. And the idea of Vote Action was that you could, if you are not going to vote on the American, I forgot the word. So if you're not going to vote for the president, you can put your vote into the auction and people can go and buy it. And also a lot of lawsuits were after that action. So why those ideologists, why those utopian hackers were able to create such websites? First of all, this is because, as I told, that there wasn't this centralized structure. There wasn't something like Google, and people were pretty trustful back then. So they trusted what they saw on the internet, and artists were trying to make them rethink the technology and look at it critically. And also it was, of course, because there wasn't any artistic canon, and nobody knew that art can be online. And this is pretty important. The pretty important thing is that, of course, usually when we're talking about any art movement, artist becomes seen when he goes into the art market exchange, and when he's presented in the galleries, when he's presented in museums, and then the public knows that it is art. With the net art, it was pretty hard because they weren't putting, I don't know, a sign, I am an artist. They were just doing their actions in the web. And for a long time, they were able to escape this art market project, and they were able to escape getting into museums. And right now, of course, we see the consequences of it in art being like taken off the web and not preserved. But this is what was interesting for them. They decided that they could not only use media tactically, and they could not only disrupt this logic, but they also can see this medium as a place for formal experimentations. And this artwork, for example, by Alexei Shulgin, it was just a website which was called www.artmetal, and it was an award. And basically, Alexei was appropriating different websites. They were not artistic at all. And for example, here we see the site which was called Philosophy, but actually it was just distributing cosmetics. And he would appropriate the homepage of the website, put it in the golden frame, and put in his website a wording with the art medal, and writing some funny nominations, like for the truly feeling of art, for moderation, for colorful pictures and something. And he has this collection still on his website of those pages that he collected back then. So again, we don't see the difference between website as an artifact, and we don't see this difference between artistic website. All can be art, and those artifacts of amateur culture are pretty important when we're talking about net art. However, there were some artists which were doing these, let's call it pure art experiments. So basically, they were trying to understand what is an artistic language in the web, and how we can use it as a medium to present just purely formalistic experiments. And one of the important artwork is the artwork which was made by Jody. And Jody is a key figure, so they are still actually working as net artists. This is a pretty rare example. And what they made, it was a website. I will show it right now, so it will be easier to talk about it. So yeah, this is a website which is called Jody. So basically, it's an access interface. When we're going to a website like this, we are thinking that right now we will see some bios, some projects, CVs, but instead we are met with these indecipherable ASCII symbols. We don't understand what it does telling us. We can click and here we can see some glitch experiments, which are quite beautiful, and they are, of course, this pure form. We see how Jody are glitching the structure on the web, and therefore they're showing the structure of the web. Yeah, we can click a lot here and see glitches. We can see some, I think here, gaming experiments. Yeah, so it's 8-bit experiments, but this project, except of formalistic experiments, it also has this idea of critical media theory. And this is the idea that the technology, it presents us with the interfaces, right? So basically when we are seeing the website, we're seeing something that was interfaced to us. It was translated from the language of the machine to the language of visual culture or letters that we as humans can apprehend. And here instead, we're seeing the language of the machine, the language of the code. And it looks like an error to us. And it obviously looks like an error to a person who just was wandering around the web. But this is important for net artists, that if you are curious enough, you can find something that is hidden inside. So if we open HTML code of this page, and we'll do it right now, we will see that the page itself is written as an image. So the real image is hidden inside HTML code, and it can only be discovered by someone who uses technology critically. And to use technology critically is, of course, to understand technology and to understand how it works. So if you are interested why the site is not working, you can go easily to HTML code and change something. And here, this is not just a picture. This is different pictures and schemes of how bombs can be assembled. So here, this is a quite straightforward metaphor of artists bombing and deconstructing the very structure of the web. So the idea of an error, as we see in this example with glitches or with ASCII symbols presented in the site, was pretty interesting for net artists. This is why, because the error, which were actually pretty common in the early web, they were um, they were showing the language of the machine. They were showing the materiality behind technology. So this screen culture that makes us anesthetic, it breaks, and somehow we see what is inside. We see that this is not real person. We see that this is just mediated by the technology. And lots of artists were doing the experiments of trying to find those glitches on the web, for example, and present them as artifacts, or to make those glitches like we see here in the website of Jody. But another wave are not glitches and ASCII art, which is was really common. And this is an artwork by Vuk Chosic, one of the most important artists of net art. He was one of the theorists, and he had this Institute of Internet Culture also in Ljubljana. And here what he made is the soft which could transport or transform pixels into ASCII symbols. So if we go to his website, we can see that here he had some examples of movies, which he was transforming into ASCII symbols. And on one point, what he was doing, I will show the excerpt now, 1 second. Basically what he was doing, he was again translating from one language to another. So basically pixels itself are the digital technology, right? This is a language of JPEGs. This is a language of digital images. And ASCII symbols, this is web language. And by transforming those, he's researching the languages, researching how one language can be written through another language. And also he's, of course, critiquing this circulation of images and circulation of informational content that was that is in the basis of the internet. And this is example of the Birds movie. I think it's quite resembling. He also worked a lot with porno movies because, as he told in one of his interviews, in porno movies there are a lot of close-ups, and close-ups are easily can be transformed in ASCII symbols and be understandable. And of course, this is again provocation and a joke, which were pretty common in net art. So yeah. This example is probably one of the most radical formalistic examples. This is the artwork by Alexei Shulgin, and it's itself called form art. And what we see here on the website is blocks that are usually used in the internet to fill in some forms or inquiries. So by clicking to one of these forms, you are going to see more forms, and then again more forms. You are maybe trying to find some logic in it, but this is quite aimlessly going through the net. And again, it on one point appropriates the logic of surfing the net. However, on the other point, it also presents us with the technology that was out of which the content was taken out. Its purpose was taken out. So it's technology without a purpose and what becomes of it. And here we're presented with just form, and you always lose. You always lose to the internet. You always lose to this trying to put as many questions to your, I don't know, form to fill in. And this idea of finding beauty in the elements of the web is one of the core for all those experiments. Even in critical experiments, we obviously faced with this idea of how it can be done and what is the beauty behind this language of the machine. And another figures that we need to consider when we're talking about net art is Mark Napier and his works with browser. So Mark Napier, he was an artist and he was a painter before he became a net artist. And in his art projects, he's trying to combine the language of the net with the logic of abstract expressionism, harder in English than in Russian. Also, yet again, he's trying to show us what are the content behind the interface. So one of his works called Schroeder, and it was made in 1998. It is not it, I'm just copying the link. So this is the work. In this work, this is an alternative browser, which is shreddering and making in a digital confetti any website that you will put in. So right now we will see what is happening. So yeah, this is the initial website. This is website of an artist, Harm van den Dorpel. And now I shredded it, and we see that actually there is no pictures, but this site, it consists of pictures. So this browser, it's helping us to see what is behind those pictures. And if we click, maybe we will see something more picturesque. Yeah, now we have some abstract pictures here. So this idea that was Mark Napier was trying to show us is that for net artists, it was pretty important to avoid visual culture, like MTV visual culture, newspapers video culture. They were trying to dissect it, and they were trying to fight against just bringing the visual culture of the physical world, the visual culture that was already explored, to the net. And for them, it was important to try and think how we can make this culture different. And as we see right now in the internet, they actually failed because the interfaces are much more stronger than it was. And this mediation between technology is much stronger. We usually don't think about what is behind the code, behind the website, or behind the Instagram picture. We're just looking at it. And those glitches that were pretty common for early web, now they're almost gone. We can try and make glitch, but we rarely see glitches in our browsers. And his other work, Riot, we won't look at it. I will just tell a couple of words. It was, we see it here in the background, and it was implementing the idea of sociality in the net. So by going to this browser Riot, you can search for something that you like, but instead of looking at the site that you typed in, you will be looking at the mix of your website and website of the previous user that was using this browser. So another example is browser art and Mark Napier. And one of the last examples that I will show is, of course, Oля Lalina, and she's a key figure of net art, and she might be considered as a legend even. She was not only an artist, but she was also a theoretic, and now she's a professor at Stuttgart University. Also, she's fighting for users' rights and for users to understand technology critically. And this is what inspired lots of her works. And I think we will see it in these examples. So we'll look at two examples. First is My Boyfriend Came from the War. It's 1996. And we see here the experiment with how narratives and storytelling can work on browser. So Mark Napier, right, he was telling us that we don't need to just transport visual culture of physical world to the web. And Ola Lalina, she's trying to think, okay, if we're not transporting, then how can we tell stories on the web? And this work consists of tables, HTML tables, which were used a lot in early internet, and some pictures and GIFs. So it's telling us the story of boyfriend of a man who came from war, and of communication between the woman and this man. And this communication is partly lost. We see that they're quite separated. It works as an interactive literature, so we can actually try and decide what is ahead of the story by choosing some of the sentences. And the more we click on pictures, the more blank spaces are arising, and lots of narratives can be done here by just clicking in those pictures. And another example is Agatha Appears, and it also works with the idea of different storytelling, different narrative structure. And here I ask you to look at the address bar right now. As you see, it's changing, and the story is told by two types of visual codes. First, this is obviously pictures and the movement of persons on your screen. But the most important one is address bar that is changing when something on the screen is changing. Sorry, either something with my connection or, yeah, changed. So this is a way, I think, that was quite interesting to tell the story through URI and through the address bar. And for Ola Lalina, address bar is, of course, something that is lost today, but then back then in early net, as I already told, to find the exact website, you needed to know the address of this website, and the address bar wasn't so invisible as it is right now. And of course, Ola is trying to critique the address bar becoming invisible, because the address bar and URI actually can tell us a lot. It can tell us about the server, it can tell us about where the art is located, artwork is located. And later she will be doing some more experiments with art and address bar. For example, one of her works called Summer, and it's a GIF. Each sequence of the GIF is located on different server. So basically, when you're looking at the GIF on the screen, the address bar is changing, and if one server is down, the whole work is basically down. So as we saw, artists were telling us that if something is in the web, if something is in the internet, it should talk and speak the net language. And for those years, the first years, they were trying to explore the capacity of the net. They were trying to explore the language of the net. And also they were pretty actively fighting capitalization of the web. However, despite all of their efforts, internet was becoming capitalized and was becoming capitalized pretty fastly. And the last one example that I will show you, it is the most bright example of hacktivist or tactile media art that was made in 2000, and that actually showed that the era of free exchange, that this utopia of being proactive user has come to an end. So this is a work by eToy Corporation. We already saw their work as a digital hijack, the website, which hijacked users. And this work came because of the legal suit, how do you say it? Legal suit? No, I forgot. Sorry, I forgot the word. So there was a legal case against eToy Corporation. It was made by eToys. eToys was a retailer that was selling toys, and they went aware about the eToy Corporation because one of their users, one of their purchasers, someone who just wanted to buy toys, came wandering to the website of eToy Corporation, NetArt Collective, and there this person was met with aggressive pictures, with some terrorist lozungs and all these activists things that they were showing on their website. And this retailer who was selling toys, it suggested that it can buy this domain, and it can even give some shares in their company to collective of artists, but they respectively or not respectively declined. And after this, American court decided to close the domain of eToy NetArt Collective, and they even didn't think about the fact that eToy Net Collective was the first one who bought this domain, and their site was shut down. After which, they started this big, huge propaganda, which was called Toy War. And this Toy War propaganda was met with a lot of support in the internet community. And on 2000, on Christmas Eve, eToy Collective, Net Artists, they started these protest actions, which was called FloodNet. It was using the technology that was sending a lot of inquiries to the website of this retailer. And during Christmas, their site went down because a lot of participants, just surfers of the net and all NetArt community, they installed this plugin, the FloodNet, and they were sending a lot of inquiries to this website. Website went down. And what was actually really interesting is that in 2001, the company eToy, they were faced with bankruptcy because during this action of protest, their losses, like money losses, were huge. And also this toy war propaganda against this retailer was quite intense. And they had to, go out of market because of this action that was made by artists. But this was, I think, the last huge win, which was made by Net Artists. And even before, previously, in 1999, Alexei Shulgin and Vuk Chosich, they proclaimed NetArt dead. and they told that there is no more net art and net artists won't be making their projects. Of course, net art continued, but the internet changed so tremendously, so they weren't be able not only to make such political actions in the web and to distribute information freely, but they also wouldn't be able to implement these visual experiments, because if we look at the internet today, I think we can all agree that it's quite standardized. There is no individuality in it. We don't have home pages. We have right now tilde layouts, or we have Instagram and other social media to show our individuality to the world. But it's all restricted, so we cannot just have a blank canvas and create their like a website as a personality. We can only create it through some actions that are predetermined, like putting pictures and, I don't know, putting our status, writing about our books and writing posts on Facebook. So the in 2000, there was a huge crisis in the internet, which was called the bubble of dot-coms. Basically, lots of dot-coms and small companies got bankrupted, and it allowed to great big corporations come and buy all those websites. And a lot of websites were shut down. And the idea of user as someone who need to know the programming, like basic programming to create something in the web, it wasn't very prominent for these big corporations. So a lot of investments were made in making the interfaces, so the user wouldn't need to leave the browser again. So for example, right now, we all know it in Instagram, we don't need to go outside of Instagram to edit our picture. We can just put a filter inside or put a mask. And this is the process that started in the early 2000s, and the process that tremendously changed the visual culture. And here we have two tables that are pretty important in this conversation about Web 1.0 and Web 2.0. I want to talk about the right one. So this is actually an artwork which was made by an artist, Guthrie Lanagan, and he was a part of Nasty Nets collective. They worked from 2000 till like 2006, so they were in between net art and what comes today. And he created this table of how internet changed. So yeah, instead of hacking, we have a default right now. When we want to create art, instead of hacking into Nintendo cartridge to make images, we're using Paint to make images. So again, we have some kind of interface, some kind of soft to make an art. We don't need to be proactive anymore. Instead of glitches, we have standardized 12 point times New Roman. So 12 points times New Roman was one of the fonts that we're using in site blocks in WordPress and those big platforms that were giving this opportunity for any user to come and make their website pretty easily with the predetermined layouts. And what is interesting is that where we see here net art 1.0, here we have these question marks. So in 2004, they still don't know what will be after net art. They understand that net art is definitely dead, that the internet is different, that here, instead of telling that taking privacy is lame, we willingly give our privacy, and we write about ourselves in MySpace profiles, and we can add here Facebook and everything that will come later. So they don't know what will come. And with the huge platforms like Twitter, like Facebook, which we also can see here, instead of mailing lists and forums, instead of publishing, we have broadcasting right now, and the idea of one-way communication is back, and this is like what they were trying to fight against. And what came after is post-internet art, uh, which is feeding on the Web 2.0 culture. It is feeding on the circulation of images, on this amateur culture, and it's pretty different phenomenon that is not only exists online. So it goes offline. Both of those artworks, as you see, they are offline, and they're just reflecting on the culture that we have, on the culture of Internet of Things and Internet going off our browser to mobile phones, to coffee pots, and everything that goes with it. So basically, there was a pretty small period of time where artists had this freedom, and they were trying to, as hard as they could, to use this freedom and to understand how internet could look and to understand what instruments could we use. However, this proven also to be utopia, like a utopia of emancipatory use of media. And almost all net artists are not working right now or work as theorists and as academics. So I guess this is all. The theory part is over. And if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them. Yeah, this reminds of surveillance capitalism. I agree. Um, yes, any questions?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'd like to ask about one thing. All examples, as far as I understand them, contained three elements. First of all, and I think it's the main element, all examples of net art you showed us were somehow rethinking the web. I mean,
Mhm.
they are they tries to understand its language, its form, and so on. Second, it's all of them took place in the web.
Mhm.
All of them were sites, and third, all of them involves users in some experience.
Mhm.
Maybe not
Mhm.
all, but nearly all. And I'm trying to understand. In very beginning, you showed a slide where you said that net art is something between the two computers, or maybe more than two. But and what's the main component which makes net art, or maybe there are a lot of such components.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, in the very beginning, I also, while showing this slide, told that there is no one exact definition of net art. And this is not because the net art is not being researched. Net art is being hugely researched, but this is because net art in itself is a movement that was trying to break borders, and it's always avoiding any particular distinction. So if we are able to distinct what net art really is in like two words, then net art is like that. The things that you ruled out, those three components, I think they're all true. Basically, of course, the most important thing in net art is that, first of all, it can only live online. And the second is that it consists of the web language, right? So as I showed in some of the examples, the work is not full because we are going to another website and the website is not working, and we cannot understand what artist meant when, I don't know, he or she wrote something and put this link. Or we're going to website and website is updated and it looks completely different than it looked back then. So net art works. I think it's quite interesting when we're talking about digital art. They're alive, and they're alive because the net is alive. And for example, the work that I showed of Alexei Shulgin, it right now has the algorithm inside of it, which is updating itself. So every time the web updates, the artwork updates, it changes the look. So it changes how it looks. These bars and these buttons look different, but it stays alive. So it's like evolutioning together with the web. And I think maybe this idea of a live artwork, which is inside the net, which is trying to rethink or reuse or break something that was in the net. This is the main components of the net art. Yes, I would say this. I think you understand everything right, and you ruled out all those elements. With the users, yeah, I think maybe not all the works with the users, but you also critically put this point. So I think not all works need users, but mostly all of them. And this is because it was really important, again, for artists to fight against what is called right now proletarization of the user. So user becomes this worker in this attention economy, and it's not only producing value for other big companies, but it's also is very away from the technology. It doesn't understand the technology, and this is the reason why the user cannot be like a revolutionary, you know, because you don't have the understanding how to break technology right now, and you don't have the understanding what can be done with technology. You just look at the technology. We're all looking at the technology. I mean, except, I don't know, programmers and people who are doing this as a part of their everyday work. Yes, I hope that I answered the question. I'm not sure, but it's a really hard question. I think, you know, what book I might refer you to is a book by Rachel Green. It was in the early slides, and it's called Internet Art. It's available online. PDF copy can be found online. And I think she's pretty easily trying to structurize the net art by those 6 criteria, like emails, audios, videos, and other stuff that was mentioned. And she's categorizing it and like showing the exact examples of how artists were using this or that technology.
Can I mention your previous remark about like a user having no control over technology? In your opinion, is there any chance?
Блин.
What is it?
Слушай, ты вчера в самолете летел рядом с молнией. Все окей.
Ксюш, у тебя включился микрофон.
Sorry, did you hear any of
Sorry.
Yeah, I hear. I heard a little, but if you can repeat, it would be great.
Yeah, I wanted your opinion on your like previous remark concerning the user having no control over technology. And in your opinion, is there any chance of ever getting at least a part of net art freedom back?
This is really hard because the very technological structure of the web is very different. So, for example, during net art and early web, there wasn't any big providers. there wasn't a property on the web, so nobody owned anything. And right now we have a property, and for example, with this logic of property, the itoi domain was like taken down. And also the communication is different. So before it was what is called peer-to-peer communication. I'm not sure that I can explain it correct in English, but I will try. So basically it was several computers that were linked to each other. So one to one and one to one and one to one. And each computer worked as a server. So there wasn't like any cloud storages, or at least like servers. And you was the one who had the control of the information. Right now, I think it's quite widespread. But again, this topic is trying to research and trying to think of this tactical media in contemporary internet. It is researched by Gert Loving, who was the author of this tactile ABC manifesto. And he has this critical institute of the internet in Netherlands that I mentioned. And maybe some of his works would answer it better, because he has this idea that we need to come back to peer-to-peer communication, that we need to unplug our computers from any clouds, that we need to come back to mailings and like not mailings through Gmail or mail. So right now, you know, we live in these big corporations. Internet is big corporations, and like we need to remake the internet and make it like low res, with low resolutions, with low connectivity. And I'm not sure that all of us are ready for this, because right now we're sitting in the Zoom, and if the internet would be like it was back then with that freedom, we wouldn't be able to sit in the Zoom. Maybe in some webcam rooms they were not sexualized, but they were using like chatting rooms. But yeah, there was low resolution and pretty slow connection, and lots of instruments, I think, now is lost, and we don't know how to work with our hands on the internet. We don't know how to make a page. Even we don't know how to open HTML code of the browser, and it doesn't, I think, go in our head to look at it because we don't understand what is there. So yeah, I'm pretty pessimistic about it. But I think the internet is just different, and we live in a different era. It gives different opportunities to us.
So the chances are like artists will always invent something to foster their creativity anyway. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I hope maybe some of you will enter our master program and become this digital artist, and will try to rethink the internet. So, do we have any other questions? Okay, so I think that's it, Lina. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you all very much for coming.
Yes, thank you very much. And if you have any questions, don't be shy and write to me. You can ask Lina for my email or something. And if you're interested in the topic, I can send you some more texts to read on this topic, because of course we were just like going through the tops of the huge hills and icebergs today. Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Lina.